Hello, everyone. My name is Rashawn Collins, and I'm beyond excited to welcome you all to the very first episode of my organization, the Cognitive Research Awareness Collective. Today, we'll be diving deep into the brain, and this will be a journey you do not want to miss. Before we start off, I wanted to share why this organization is more than just a podcast. This project stems from a personal place. I had to watch my own great grandmother's health decline due to dementia. As the baby of the family, I felt lost being left out of tough conversations, and I knew I had to take matters into my own hands. This podcast is my way of blending science with heart to explore the wonders of neuroscience and raise awareness about cognitive degenerative diseases. Some things you can expect from this organization are to tackle everything from the basics of brain science to the nitty-gritty of cognitive health. Today I'll actually be discussing memory strategies with two-time US champion Ron White. Before we talk with Ron, I wanted to discuss memory from a scientific perspective with you. Memory is essential in all of our lives. It allows individuals to recall information and draw upon past events to frame their present understanding and daily behaviors. Memory is formed when information is processed in the brain, whether it's images, sounds, or if something becomes meaningful. Memory formation has 3 stages, including encoding, storage, and retrieval. First is encoding. This stage starts from a sensory input, which can be visually, acoustically, or semantically. After this, it is translated into something that the memory system can handle. For example, a word on a billboard may be stored in the memory system if it's encoded or connected to something like a sound or meaning. The second stage is storage, and this is where all memories are located. The way that a memory is stored affects how that memory is retrieved. For example, studying for an extended period of time for an exam has a better chance of memory retention than cramming information the night before a quiz. The last stage is retrieval, which refers to getting information out of storage. This brings us to our 2 memory systems, the short-term system and the long-term system. The short-term memory lasts for about 0 to 30 seconds, and most adults have 5 to 9 slots, or spaces where information is available to be stored in the brain. This memory type is stored and retrieved sequentially, while the long-term memory is believed to have unlimited slots and stored and retrieved by association. Ron will be joining us shortly to share some insight on memory strategy and give us a peek into the mind of a memory coach. I'm thrilled to introduce our special guest for this episode, Ron White. Hello, everyone. I'm here with Ron White, 2 times US memory champion. He is a speaker, author, and trainer, and he's going to talk with us today about memory and some strategies. Do you want to share anything about your past, anything that you've done?
Well, I'm a two-time USA memory champion. I used to hold the record for the fastest to memorize a deck of shuffled cards in the United States. I held that record for 2 years. I held a record where, for the longest number memorized in 5 minutes in the United States, I memorized a 167-digit number in 5 minutes. And I've held some other records and done some other things, but I think the most important thing is when I say that, when I say I've held these records or won the memory championships, I think the most important takeaway from that is, wow, okay, that's cool. Is he a genius or was it a system? And the answer to that is I'm just a normal guy and I learned a system that anybody can do.
Okay. So, in your own words, how exactly does memory work?
Well, we will get information, through our eyes or our ears or how, and once that information goes in our brain, typically it might just stay in our working memory for a few seconds and then fade away.
Mm-hmm.
But if it is unusual, if it has action and emotion in it, have you ever been in a car accident?
No, I haven't.
Oh, I'm thankful for that. When somebody has been in a car accident, they can remember, I can say, how many years ago was it? And they can say 15 years ago. And I can say, was it day or night? Who was driving? How did it occur? Where did it occur? What street was it on? And they can answer all those questions 15 years in the past. But if I say, tell me everywhere you drove last week, they can't even, they got to think about it for a long time and they might not even remember everywhere. Because most things that happen in our everyday life, our memory doesn't lock onto them. It locks onto the things that are interesting, that have action in them, like a car accident, or emotion in them. you're emotional about something, you see a song or you meet somebody or whatever. Those are the kind of things that our memory holds on to.
Yeah, so like the stages of memory encoding, that would be whenever you're visually seeing something, whenever you hear something, or semantically, whenever that thing has meaning, like the car accident, that would have a great meaning.
That would have some meaning to it. You're right. And that emotion would cement it in. There's a part of your brain called the hippocampus, and
Hmm.
your hippocampus will store it in your long-term memory. And another thing that makes things go into your long-term memory is, let's say it was a car accident. Well, the next day you tell somebody about the car accident. And then 2 days later, you tell somebody about it. And then a week later, you tell somebody about it. That review, although you're not consciously reviewing it, that review is making it stick in your memory even a little more. So let's say there's a song that's out on the radio and it's one of your favorite songs right now. You're going to hear it on the radio. You're going to hear it all the time. You're going to hear it when you go to your friend's house. You're going to maybe hear it when you go to a restaurant or something. And that repetition is going to put it in your memory. And in 20 years, you'll hear the song again and you'll still remember the words because of all
Yeah.
that repetition.
Can you talk about maybe some of the different types of memory? I heard you say long-term memory. I know there's short-term memory, which usually that was the one that you were talking about. It's only stored for a few seconds, right?
Yeah, your short-term memory is just going to be a few seconds, and if there's nothing emotional or unusual, or your brain doesn't think it was important, it'll just fade away. Also, if you're just not focused, you walk into your house and you're not focused, you're thinking about your day, or you're thinking about school, or you're thinking about something else. You get your keys out and you set them down, and 2 hours later, it's time to leave, and you don't know where your keys are. And it's not because you have a bad memory. It's just because you weren't focused. You were on autopilot. And so it was in your short-term memory for like half a second, or maybe you weren't even paying attention. A big, big key to memory is focus. So you have the short-term memory. It's also can be referred to as working memory.
Hmm.
And then your long-term memory. Stuff will get in your long-term memory if it's action and emotion, if it, like you said, if it makes sense to something else, or if you review it.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. What exactly got you into memory training?
Well, so 33 years ago, and I know that sounds crazy because that's twice your age right now almost. So I've had one of your lifetimes and then another of your lifetime. But 33 years ago, I was a telemarketer for a company that cleaned chimneys. I was 18 years old, and I was a telemarketer for this company. And I was calling people every day, seeing if we could clean their chimney. And I called this guy one day and I said, "Can we clean your chimney?" And he said, "We don't want our chimney cleaned. We're trying to sell our house." And I said, "Well, if you're trying to sell your house, you should have a clean chimney." And he kind of laughed and he said, "I don't know about that, but I do want you to go to work for me selling memory training seminars."
Okay.
And it just sounded so cool to me. I was 18 years old, and back then in the 1991, there was an infomercial on TV selling a memory training course on cassettes. I bet you never even used a cassette. I know you haven't.
I've seen them.
Okay, you've seen them. Yeah. So we were selling memory courses on cassette. And I went to work for him, but it just sounded like a really, 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 really cool job. Uh, as a high school student and junior high student, I was always interested in magic and magic tricks. And I thought, man, memory is kind of like magic.
Yeah,
So I was just really drawn to it.
that's very interesting. You've definitely come a long way from cassettes.
Yeah, cassette and then CDs. And then like in 2012, I ordered my CDs arrived, and the girl who signed them in, she says, "What's in these?" And I said, "They're CDs." She said, "CDs? Nobody listens to CDs." And that's how I found out there was no more CDs.
That's funny. I feel like your unique experience with memory training and your long experience. You've been going through this for quite some time. I feel like it brings a very different perspective to what I'm talking about and my mission, which is just to bring awareness to dementia and how it affects people and how different types of things, unconventional ways that can help people get better.
Well, you really have a good grasp on it, and I can tell you're a very intelligent young lady. And what's really sad to me about dementia is, think about this. If your memory declines with dementia, the quality of your life is going to decline. I mean, that's not even debatable.
Yeah.
So let's flip that around. I'm all about improving memory, right? If the quality of our memory improves, the quality of our life can improve. It's the flip side of it. So that's what I really try to work on people, just helping them remember more of the things that they want.
That's very interesting. Are there any common misconceptions about memory training that you've encountered or had to debunk?
Yeah, there are. There actually are. I think the biggest one is that you have to have a natural gift to have a great memory. I mean, that's just people will all the time say to me, Ron, you held these records or you did this. You have some special ability that I don't have. And I'm like, no, I don't. Let me teach you how to do it. And then I teach them how to do it, and they get very similar results. And they're still like, well, you must have some special ability. I'm like, you just did what I did. But people just don't give themselves the same amount of credit that they will give me for whatever reason. But the biggest conception is either you're born with a bad memory or you're born with a good memory, and there's nothing you can do to improve it. That's just how it is. And that's just not true. You can improve. Now, let's also be honest. There are things as far as genetics, and people have faster brains and more efficient brains. And that's, I competed against guys in memory tournaments and ladies who far surpassed we're using the same system,
Yeah.
but like they're like so far ahead of me. And there's nothing I can do to catch up to them, because there is a genetic difference a little bit. But overall, the biggest misconception is that you can't improve your memory with memory training, and you have to be born with a good memory. I think the next misconception would be is that you are too young or you are too old. I've taught a 6-year-old how to memorize the presidents of the United States,
Oh,
all
wow.
40. Yeah. I have a video on YouTube of it. But I taught her how to memorize them using by like on this piece of furniture by attaching it to locations in her house, right? On
Really?
this, yeah. So like on this piece of furniture, a washing machine, this piece of furniture for Washington, this piece of
Mhm.
furniture, a dam, like a dam on a river for Adams. And she was 6 years old. And she can run. I have a video of her on YouTube running through her house
Oh
saying
my,
all, yeah, isn't that crazy?
yes. I actually had to do that last year for my class.
Oh, how long did it take you to memorize them?
It took me almost a week, but I can't remember it to this day, so
Yeah. Well, that's okay. You didn't review it, right?
no, I didn't.
So and how did you memorize it?
It was just my teacher, she came up with like a little song with mnemonics to help us remember everything.
Oh, so a song.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was this her creation?
I think it was a mixture of her and then some previous students because there's
Oh,
some unique things in there.
some things that students would think of, maybe not an adult.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to hear that song one day.
With your strategies, how do you usually teach people with memory? Like, how do you go through it?
Yeah, my biggest system that I really believe in is it's a technique called the memory palace or the mind palace. It's a technique that was developed about 2,500 years ago in Greece. by a man named Simonides. So Simon, like Simon says, Simon, and then I think it's Ides, Simonides. But Simonides was a Greek poet, and he 2,500 years ago in 477 BC. And I'll tell you straight up, I don't know if this story is true or not, but it's on the internet, so I'm going to assume it has to be true. I don't think they can put fake stuff on the internet, right?
That's what I say.
Yeah, that's what you say. Yeah. So, Simonides lived in 477 BC. He was in a room. He was a poet. He was there to deliver a poem. He delivered the poem and he left. When he left, an earthquake or something hit the building. The roof collapsed. It killed everybody in the room. They pulled the rocks off the people. They pulled the building off the people, and everybody was crushed flat so bad they couldn't recognize it. They didn't know who was who. But Simonides had been in the room. So he said, Rashawn was sitting there, Tanya was sitting there, Lisa was sitting there, Brian was there, Kim was there, Stacy was there, Doug was there, David was there. He remembered them based on where they were sitting in the room. And then he goes back to his house and he's like, you know what? What if it wasn't people in those spots, but what if it was information that I wanted to remember? So he went back home and he numbered like 5 rooms in his house. Let's do it here in your room. Let's say you were standing in that doorway right there, and you don't get up. You can just do it in your brain. But if you were standing in that doorway and you look to your immediate left, what's the first big object? For example, a desk, a bed, a TV, a dresser, a stove, a lamp, a bookshelf, a bed, a chair, a door. What would be to your immediate left of the door?
It would be the closet.
Closet. So closet's number one. Now let's go around the room again. If you're going around the room clockwise, what's the next big piece of furniture?
A couch.
Couch. So couch is 2. We're going to do 5. What's the next one?
It's a dresser.
Dresser. So closet, couch, dresser. What's the next one?
A desk.
Desk, and one more.
A TV.
TV. Okay. So now you got 5 pieces of furniture. And this is how I teach. This is my style.
Okay.
And I would walk that person all through their house, numbering 5 pieces of furniture in a room. And then we would take whatever we want to memorize and we would imagine it on those spots. So if it was the president of the United States, we would imagine a washing machine for Washington on your closet. On the number 2, what'd you say number 2 was?
A couch.
On the couch, we would make a dam there for a dam for Adams. So the method that I teach is known as the mind palace or the memory palace. It's taking whatever you want to remember and visualizing it in spots around a house, making sure that you involve a lot of action and emotion.
That's very cool. Do you feel like memory is something that you have to consciously work at, or something that is unconscious for you now, something that just kind of comes naturally for you now?
You know, that's a very good question. You're asking great questions. You should be a reporter one day too. But what your work is here is so important. You don't need to do that. But you could be successful. I'll say that.
Thank you.
Um, it's both. It's both. So when you're first learning the memory system, it's very conscious. You know, to remember anything, you need to turn it into an image. So you got the number 21. You might think of a deck of cards, right? Because the game blackjack. The magic number is 21. For the number 25, you might think of a quarter because 25 cents. But in the initial memory process, when you're first learning the system, you got to think to yourself, okay, what could my picture for 25 be? Oh, that could be a quarter. What could my picture for 21 be? Oh, that could be a deck of cards. At the beginning, it's very conscious. Over time, it's just interchangeable. You see the number 21, you think of a deck of cards. You see 25 and you think of a quarter.
Yeah.
So it takes some time to get to that point, but I also don't want to mislead anybody. I am not walking into a room and everybody's just saying their name and then I just know it unconscious, right? The unconscious part is I'm no longer having to struggle to turn it into images because that's just automatic now.
Okay.
But I still have to consciously apply the system.
That makes a lot of sense. I feel like a lot of the ways that you speak about the strategies of actually memorizing things are things that are almost taught to us from a very young age, like repetition and just learning styles in general. So it's almost like the strategies for actually being efficient with memory are like right on the brink of what we're already taught in our daily lives. So I feel like what you were saying with 25 and a quarter, like it already just sort of clicks once you start to understand it.
Yeah, it does. It's a really, it's a process that if you, a lot of people, some people to a certain extent are already doing something similar without any training, like you said. I mean, or just what they pick up here and there. But a lot of what I teach, yeah, it is intuitive, I guess you would say, for a lot of people that are already trying to think of images or stories. Sometimes what's not intuitive, or sometimes what's not taught, is the second part of that. Yeah, turn it into a picture, but sometimes what's not taught is that you need to store that picture in an actual location in your brain. So, let's say you went for a walk down your street, and down your street you had one of the trees was number one, your friend's mailbox was number two, a red door on someone's house was number three, and you numbered 15 objects down your street. You can go for a walk with your school homework in your hand, your chemistry homework, and walk down the street. You want to memorize the first 15 elements on the periodic table. Number one is hydrogen. You see somebody waving high on that mailbox. You keep walking. Helium is number two. So you attach helium balloons to that door and it lifts, you imagine it's lifting it up. So a lot of people, we are seeing the images, but we're just not attaching it to something. And that's a step that sometimes gets left out, but it's so important.
So have you had experience with the people that you train with them coming back and saying how significant the memory training has improved their daily lives? Or you yourself, have you experienced any significant increase in your daily life?
I have. And first of all, my the people that I've trained, a lot of them they'll be studying for a test. So one lady was studying for the bar exam and she just couldn't retain the material. And so we created this little walk that she goes on and she imagined the information for the bar exam on this walk. And so when she was taking a test, she was just mentally taking that walk and she breezed through the test. It reduced so much stress for her. I've seen a college student who couldn't remember some in algebra. There's something called the steps to completing the square of a quadratic equation. That's kind of a mouthful to say, but that's what it's called. And she couldn't remember them, and so we just attached them to this little route, that she walked along, and she got that, and I hear those stories of feedback, and it's always great. And in my life, yeah, I use it to remember names, and it's helped me out a lot. As a speaker, I give speeches all the time, and they're not always about memory; they're about other things. And I will memorize them using this route method. So it's made me a more confident speaker. And that's why I keep doing this. I get the feedback from students and my own life, and it really inspires me.
That's great. I love that all the different ways that people come to you seeking help. It's very unique how many different ways that you can actually apply memory. It's something that I feel like is pretty overlooked in our daily lives for able-bodied people, but it's something that definitely improves every aspect.
It does. You think about it, if you are 80 years old and you just want to exercise your brain, you just want to exercise it. You want to play games with yourself. You could give yourself a list of words and maybe they're important to you for something, or maybe it's just a game. For somebody on that end of the spectrum, it would be beneficial. For
Mhm.
business people, it's beneficial, and for students, it's beneficial. And so, any area of your life, when your memory is improved, it improves the quality of your life. And a lot of people don't think of it that way. They just think about, if I lose my memory, what happens if I get dementia? What happens if I get Alzheimer's? Well, think about it the other way too. What happens if I improve my memory?
Yeah.
So it goes both, it can happen either way.
Have you ever researched how memory training improves like cognitive function just in general for the future and your brain health?
I only, on this one, I'll be honest with you, I have some guesses. I don't have any scientific documentation of this, but I have some guesses.
Okay.
And my guesses are this: the more you keep your brain active, right, the better it's gonna work for you. With the limited research I have done on dementia and Alzheimer's and things like that, it says one of the things that make is a risk factor for that is people who are isolated and lonely, right? They're by themselves all day long. They don't have good social circles. And one reason for that is they're not getting that interaction from other humans, and it's not engaging their brain that way.
Okay.
So I think you should engage your brain in many ways to keep it healthy. One of those ways is through social interaction, interacting with other human beings. That's very important. Another thing, though, I think you can do other than that is things that engage your brain. Just reading a book engages your brain. Um, I do think stuff like crossword puzzles engages your brain. I'm not super big on those type of games like that, but I do think the memory mind palace here, I do think is a challenge that engages your brain, and I think it could only be helpful
Mm-hmm.
to you as you age.
Okay. That makes sense. But yeah, with dementia, I feel like training would definitely be beneficial to improve beforehand as a, what's the word I'm looking for? As a pre-treatment before a diagnosis.
Yeah, and on the limited research that I have done on dementia, and I have looked into it, and
Mm-hmm.
because there is some correlation, what I have heard is that if you're going to get dementia, that right now I don't think they can prevent it. I don't think so. You may have been be more up to date on this than me. But what my research does show that you can delay it. So there are things you can do to keep your brain healthy longer. You can good nutrition and exercise, going for walks, engaging in social circles, not being isolated, but also, maybe something like the memory, exercising your brain. So the research that I have shown is that we can delay the effects of it a little bit by doing those things. And I think this is one of those.
All right. With your training, I read that before you got your actual championships, I read that you went through a lot of discipline. Do you go through that with your clients as well, or are you kind of more relaxed now that you're the actual trainer?
Yeah. I try to be disciplined in my life. But yeah, I was very disciplined in my. Here's one of the reasons I was disciplined in my training. We've seen it happen before. We've seen an Olympic runner and they're winning the race and they're about to win the race. And then sometimes that doubt creeps into their mind. They're thinking, "Oh, I'm about to win. Oh, wait, I'm not used to winning. I'm not worthy of winning. I don't know if I deserve this." And the doubts get in their mind, and then you see them trip. They trip in the last part of the race when they could have won it, and that happens a lot in life. People will be on the road to success, on the road to achieving their dreams, and as they are, right before they're about to achieve their dreams, they have all this self doubt, like, I don't know if I'm worthy of this goal. I don't know if I deserve this. I've never experienced this level of success before. And they'll do something to trip themselves up and kind of sabotage themselves. And they're not doing it on purpose, but it's kind of in their subconscious mind.
Mhm.
So I really developed a lot of discipline before my tournament to show myself that I have a history of winning. I don't deserve to win, but I am worthy of winning. If I that championship would 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 I'm worthy of that. I'm not unworthy. So what I mean by that is every morning I had a time that my alarm was set that I needed to be up and training by this certain time, that I needed to do this many exercises, brain exercises each day. And I gave myself that I had to make my bed every day. Um, and I just gave myself little goals. And you think that's no big deal. You have to be up and training every day by this time. You have to have your bed made every day. You have to do this many brain exercises every day. So I set goals, all very achievable, nothing crazy, but goals. And what happens is after the first day, you're like, wow, I accomplished 3 goals today. You do that again the next day, the next day. The first month, you've accomplished almost 100 goals. 3 months later, you've accomplished 300 goals. And so I was so disciplined to program my mind. And here's what I was trying to program my mind. I was trying to program my mind to believe when you set a goal, you hit it. You've hit 100 goals in the last 3 months. You can trust yourself that when you hit a goal, you're going to do it. And when you set a goal, you're going to do it. And when you set a goal, you are worthy of the accomplishment. And so I was real disciplined, and a lot of that discipline was just simply to convince myself that I was a disciplined person who was worthy of winning.
I love that you mentioned the subconscious mind. I actually do ballet training, and I feel like a lot of it, when it comes to memory with the repetition, the subconscious mind trusting it, it all very much parallels to each other. So for ballet, we do a lot of repetition in class. We're always attaching meanings to things. And then sometimes whenever we're and doing new steps, we have to focus on trusting our subconscious mind to just deliver the step rather than having doubt. So I feel like that's definitely important with memory.
It is. It is. It certainly is. And that repetition in your ballet ingrains it into your subconscious mind, into your muscle memory, right?
Mhm.
So it's the same way with somebody who might do the martial arts or something. They do the move so many times that it just becomes natural to them, and they're not having to think. When you're doing ballet, you're not having to think about everything you're doing. It's just flowing.
Yes, sir. Do you feel like cognitive impairment could be helped with memory training after it's already been diagnosed? Just on any level, even before it reaches dementia.
So I can say that once you have dementia, I don't think there's any evidence that what I teach with memory training could help the dementia. And
Mhm.
that's sad for me to say that, but I think if I said anything else, it would be misleading. And maybe I don't know the truth, but I think that's probably accurate.
Mhm.
Now, at initial diagnosis, before it's fully developed, that's an interesting question. Could you do things to delay the progress of it before it's fully arrived? Maybe, I don't have a definite answer on that, but maybe. I think if I was diagnosed with dementia and I knew it was going to happen, I think I would be eating as healthy as I could. I think I'd be going for walks. I think I'd be talking to people. And I do think I would be exercising my brain, whether it's trying to work a crossword puzzle or memorize something.
I think that would also be beneficial for those who have families that have genetically like brain impairments to prepare for early on in life to start building up brain health.
I think you're right about that. I think you're 100% right about that. And the relationship and impact of memory and dementia compared to typical age regression and cognitive function. Like, and here's, I think that's an interesting question. And I did an interview with a woman maybe 10 years ago, and she was an expert in this field, and she'd done a lot of research on the brain as it ages. And
Really?
I asked her, I'm 50 years old now, but I was 40 years old then. And I said, I want to keep competing in memory tournaments, but I'm 40 years old, and all these guys are in their 20s, and ladies are in their 20s. Is it going to be hopeless for me? Is what happens to the brain as it ages? And this was her answer to me. It was very interesting to me. She said, as we age, our processing speed slows down. So the rate at which we can process and think, and memorize stuff or just remember stuff or process it. So as we age, it will peak maybe around 28, 29, early 30s, 32, something like that. You're at at your peak speed, and then it will decline as you get older. Some is more steep than others, but there's a peak. So I said, okay, so I'm in the decline of the speed at which my brain processes. That's great news. Yeah. And she said, you're right, you are. But what improves with age is our strategic thinking skills, our strategy. So she said, while the younger folks, they can process faster, you here's the way your life has gone. Your strategic thinking and strategy skills are going like this, and they are increasing. You're getting better at strategic thinking and strategy as you get older. So you're not thinking as fast as these younger folks, but your ability to think strategically is better. So it's like as we age, we lose some aspects of our memory, the speed at which it can go, the processing speed, but we gain strategic thinking and logic and strategy because we have so many experiences to build on or to think about. In relation to your question, the normal progression of an average person, the rate at which they process is going to be slower. That is normal. How is that different from dementia? Dementia is not so much about the processing speed. It's just about being able to recall at all things that you should know because of the plaque buildup in your brain.
Mhm.
So one is a natural slowing down that people shouldn't worry about. They shouldn't worry about it at all. Oh my gosh, my brain is slowing down. Do I have dementia? No, you're getting older. You can't run as fast as you used to either, right? You're not winning any races. Um, so there's normal age decline, and then there's stuff to be worried about.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. I feel like your work has been very beneficial to people, and this is something that will continue to be very beneficial to people, and it's something that should continue to be explored.
Well, I think it should continue to be explored, and I think you're doing great work in that. You're asking great questions. You're a very intelligent and well-spoken young lady, and you're bringing great awareness to this. And
Thank
so
you so much.